Hello, I'd like to do an interview with my next person. This is Gina, and say hello, Gina.
Hello.
Okay, and Gina, I'll let you introduce yourself and tell everyone where you're from and anything about yourself that you want to tell people.
Okay. My name is Gina. I'm from Quebec, Canada. And what else did I have to say?
I don't know. I mean, you can talk about are you neurodiverse? Are you neurotypical or what?
Oh, okay. Well, I have a diagnosis of ADHD,
Okay.
and I'm on my way to get the diagnosis of ASD, which is autism.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. And that's cool. I remember now we were talking about that. And whew, that's a interesting time, I bet, for you. To get this confirmed. And I know it was a big step for me.
Yes. Well, but what was difficult was you can do like a quiz on the internet.
Yes.
To see if to get an idea if you could possibly be autistic.
Uh-huh.
That helps you know. And I did the quiz, but I'm somebody that has difficulties with precision. For me, it's important that I do things precisely. And there's some questions that I found that weren't precise enough. So I actually went to the Autism Center for them to help me answer the questions so I could make sure that I answered them correctly.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Do you know who Carol Bird is?
No.
Okay, she's at she and I were the co-founders of ASDV, and we have other plans that we were going to start doing too. But my mind just went blank. But what were you just saying? This is so embarrassing. This happens to me a lot. I'll go on a thought and it's like it just like disappears. Like, okay, what was the point of all this?
Yeah.
But
I know what you mean. The mind goes blank all of a sudden.
yeah, it does. But I mean, because what I'm trying to think of what else you were talking about.
Well, the test, the ASD test, and about precision, how precision is difficult, and
yes.
how
The quiz is what it was. And one of the things that we're going to try to do together, one of the things that she's definitely started on, and actually another member of the group, we're going to start working on making a quiz for people on the spectrum that is designed by people on the spectrum, so that because the questions you were saying, which you come up to a question, you go, well, do I do this? It's like, no, not really. I don't do that. Or maybe if it was a question about stimming, self-stimming, I would have said no. I had no idea. I guess part of it was I didn't know what it really was, and I didn't see myself doing it. But now I can see all the different ways that I self-stim. So I would answer that completely different. And if we can devise a quiz that asks those in a way that, just like you're saying, you're like, oh, I don't do that. Is that what was happening to you too?
Well, actually, it's like, well, I do that in this situation, but I don't do it as much in that situation. So what is my real answer? I felt like it wasn't precise enough.
Gotcha.
Like at work, when I'm at work, I like to work alone because if somebody comes around me, I'll lose focus and everything.
Yeah.
And like I won't mind going out like with my best friend to do something. That doesn't bother me. But then again, like when there's a group of people, I don't feel good. I'm like very stressed out.
Uh-huh. Yes, I understand that too. Yeah, I can remember. And it's interesting to me is that I was aware of those things, but since I didn't connect it with autism or something being neurologically different. I thought it was just my normal, was just sort of the normal thing. But the being uncomfortable in social situations and things, I don't understand still why it never dawned on me that there was an issue there. There was something going on there. That's not how everyone was feeling.
Mm.
So, but anyway, yeah, so you took the quiz, and that's what gave you an idea that there's more to what's going on than just.
Well, it all started off when my sons got tested for ADHD, and they both have it, and then I said, well, it's going to help me out at school, so I'll try, I'll see, just laughing it off. I didn't understand what ADHD was. For me, it was just being like hyper and silly and whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. And so I took the test, and I was like, I realized how much it was. And then I started like hyper focusing on ADHD, and I was on this Facebook forums of ADHD, and I was talking about the situations I was going through, and how, like, when I tried certain medications, how I felt different, and how I saw that there was a difference. And then somebody told me, well, I think you might have Asperger's. And I was like, what's that? And then then I started researching on that, and I found it was like some sort of autism that's high functioning, the symptoms are a little less intense than people that are nonverbal. Anyways, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah. And no, I know there's so many different types, or so many different ways that autism expresses itself in people, that when we try to look at that, though, when we try to think of ourselves as being autistic, when we're comparing ourselves with all the other different possibilities out there, it's very easy to go, well, that's not like me. Is that sort of what you were feeling too, or when you? Go ahead.
Well, certain things, it was like certain times I was like totally absorbed by autism and like what it is, and like some parts I was like, oh yeah, it's for sure, it's me. But then other times I was like, well, I don't know, but like sometimes, and it got me really, really confused. I had to really dig deeper to truly understand. And every time somebody would say something that was like one of my weird quirks on the autism forums, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone that does that. I mean,
yes.
and it keeps like making it more real for me. It's like, oh my gosh, maybe I really am. That means,
Yes, I do know.
It's quite a journey.
Yes, it is. And that's where I did what you did. I took the quiz, and that was like, that's interesting. But it wasn't the effect that actually meeting people and talking with people had on me, where I'm going, oh my gosh, these are things they are talking about and they've experienced, and things that I never even, I mean, it's like, it's hard to describe, because you don't sit around, when you think you're the only person like this in the world, literally, you don't sit around and think about it to yourself and go, oh yeah, isn't that interesting the way I do this or that? But you know that you do those things. And then you see someone else that does them, and you're going, oh my gosh, there's someone else like that. And it wasn't just one person, it was everybody. And I'm like, this is it. This is it.
Yeah.
I know this is me. This is what's happening to me. And it's amazing too. How old are you too, Gina? I'm just curious.
I'm going to be 40 soon.
And 40, you said?
Yeah, well, I'm 39. I'm going to be 40.
Okay. So you've gone quite a long time too, like I did. And it's amazing how we kind of live with it and know that there's something going on, but we just don't once we finally see all of these kind of traits tied together underneath the umbrella of autism, it's a relief. It was for me a very profound and very positive, for the most part, very positive. I mean, there's rough parts too, as far as really coming to understand and accept some things. But for the most part, I'm like thrilled that I finally know what's going on in my life. How about you?
Well, it explains a lot. I remember when I was like grade 1, I didn't understand why nobody wanted to be my friend, and I asked the guy, well, why doesn't anybody want to be my friend? And he said, well, it's the way you talk and the way you act. And I didn't understand. I always felt like a reject, and I always felt like different, and
Yep.
I just didn't understand. I felt like so small compared to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now this is like the perfect explanation of why it was so hard, why I wasn't capable of having friends.
Yes.
And well, I had some friends, but I mean, I'd always spot the person that nobody wanted to be with, and I knew it'd be a lot easier to be with that person to be able to talk with, because I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm sitting here just thinking, when I talk with people, how common all this whole experience is with everyone as they grow up. And I mean, and we all seem to have these very vivid memories that we've stored away. It's like we haven't let go of any of that. Almost like, to me, it almost felt like I was waiting for a day when I would go back, understanding what was going on, and be able to make sense of it all. I mean, that's I don't know that's really what happened, but I've got, when I first discovered this, I would actually wake up out of dreams. I was obsessed by it. I was thinking about it constantly. And I started getting all these memories, and very, very vivid memories, and starting to connect all the dots from my earliest memories till now. And it's been a process now for 8 months or so for me that I'm still connecting dots. I've got larger understandings now of areas of myself. Before, it was all these scattered misunderstandings. And it's quite a process that we all go through after discovering that we're autistic. Don't you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's you have to relearn. You have to relearn about yourself all over again.
Yes, exactly. Well, I've called it like a rebirth or a metamorphosis. I mean, I don't think people that are neurotypical understand what it means when we say we're neurologically different. We're not, and I've said this in the other interviews, and I'll probably say this again, is that I'm really realizing that, let's say, if the world was all neurodiverse, it would be a very different world. The language would be different. Not that we'd speak a different, I mean, there would still be different languages, and there'd still be English and all this, but we would, just like we lose these languages differently than the neurotypical. We've got different intent when we communicate. We structure things differently, as far as the way we organize our lives, the way we organize information. All these very profound but subtle differences. And I think the world would be very different. That's what makes it so hard for us to function, I think. That's my theory. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. And it makes, for me, I find it more difficult because I'm English. My nature is English, and I'm in a place where everyone's French.
Oh, it's true.
So it's like another difference that I have to adapt to.
Have you had to learn French?
Yeah, I had to learn French, and when people found out that I had an accent when I was speaking French when I was younger, they were really mean to me, and they'd hit me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's...
Yeah. Well, now it's better, but back then they wanted Quebec to separate from Canada, And
Yeah.
English people, they didn't like them very much.
I
So
remember that.
that didn't help.
So did you grow up in Quebec then?
Yeah, I grew up in Quebec, and yet I went to an English school,
Gotcha.
and I was raised with my mom and my grandmother.
Wow. Wow. So, and just out of this sort of on a tangent here, but how are you treated now? I mean, because you probably fit in well now, don't you? I mean, you probably speak pretty fluently as far as French and.
Yeah, well, French. Not many people notice that I'm English, so for that, it's not too bad. But
yeah, yeah, you can hide.
But pardon?
I said you can hide. You can. I'm thinking about. I know sign language. I worked with the deaf culture a lot, and my sign language skills were to the point where people would say, "Oh, I didn't know you were hearing," and that was kind of that's a good compliment. You know, it's like, "Oh, yeah, I actually am." You know, and I'm just imagining probably it's the same for you as you can speak, and people, if they do find out that your native language is English, they're surprised, and that's sort of a good feeling.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything specifically you'd like to talk about? You were talking earlier. We said something about emotional highways. If you explain that a little more.
Yes. Well, I was talking to one of my friends, and my best friend since I was young, and she's very good in psychology. And she was talking about an emotional highway. When you live an emotion when you're young, and you live it over and over and over again, it becomes like a highway, and it becomes your go-to. When you're living something, you will have a tendency to go through that highway since you have created a large highway instead of the other emotions that that you have went on less and are a smaller road. It's a lot easier to go on the bigger highway. And I found out that mine was insecurity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. Yeah. And I wonder how much of that is being autistic because, see, I suspect now that possibly my sister's autistic. I'm not sure. Possibly my dad and possibly his dad. But it's my dad was the kind of a person that growing up around him, he was very strict, very controlling, and I always felt very intimidated, or I always felt like I was going to be doing something wrong. I was very, very self-conscious, and I always thought that was a big influence of why I felt that way around other people. That's how I kind of thought we moved around quite a bit too. I mean, I think I moved around 5 times during, before junior high. So that basically every other year I was in a different school, you know. And so that I always thought, okay, well, that's one reason that I'm the new kid and nobody wants to talk and be friends with the new kid. So those are the kind of things that I was saying to myself. But I always had a very low self-esteem. We're talking about this emotional highway, and yeah, that was my go-to. Is there's something wrong with me? There's something. There's a reason for all these things happening. And of course, I never seemed to be able to explain that well with the excuses I was using, but I didn't have any other tools to use. So I just kind of said, okay, that's just me. But I like that concept of the emotional highway.
Yeah, it's smart, I find.
Yeah, yeah. But like I say, I wonder how common that is with people that are autistic, because this isolation, this alienation, this separation that we feel from society is profound, and it's very sad. I mean, the high suicide rate and things like that are part of our community. It just sort of reflects just how profound it is that this separation is, and it's a lot. I really feel for a lot of people I meet that have been there, because it was a very bad feeling to grow up that way.
And I don't know if you felt like that. Like me, when I was an adolescent and a young child, I took everything so personally. Every time I got bugged, it hit so hard inside.
Yes.
And I didn't realize, like, getting older, as an older adult, I realize now that people, they just bug each other to have fun. But back then, I didn't know that was a thing. I just thought that, oh my gosh, I'm this defect,
Yeah.
I didn't understand the concept of teasing.
The concept of what, I'm sorry?
The concept of when people tease is sometimes
teasing,
it's just because they have nothing better to do, or they're just like silly or whatever, and
yeah. Yeah.
I didn't understand that.
I withdrew. Well, one, we lived out in the country from till about, I was in, I guess, junior high. So I was already kind of isolated as it was. So that, and then moving around, the whole concept of friends and people in my life was sort of foreign to me. And those were the kind of things for me that kept me from looking at it as either some organic problem within me that would be neurological, or I didn't know that. I knew I was struggling in school. I was struggling with reading. I was dyslexic, and I didn't know. And about the age of 11, I was given a formal diagnosis at the major university here in Columbus, the Ohio State University, and they had found, I think what they called it ADD then, and dyslexia. They had what they call a cross dominance, which I think was a center line problem for me, that I had problems with left and right, and I think I mixed them. And also there was a brain damage from hypoxia at birth. And I was given that diagnosis, and that's about all that really happened at that point. I don't remember any kind of special services. I never really understood what it meant. I didn't know it was something that it would be a part of my life for the rest of my life. I thought, okay, well, no one's talking about it. Maybe it's not a problem anymore, or something like that. But did you have any other kind of a diagnosis? You said ADHD was a diagnosis for you?
Yeah, ADHD was a diagnosis that I got a year or two ago.
Okay.
But I had some when I was a teenager. I started at 10 years old. I started blacking out. I mean, like, it was like as if you pass out, but you're still sitting up. It's strange. It's like you're all of a sudden, all you know is all of a sudden you come back from nowhere.
Huh.
And I think it was a coping mechanism, because I found life was hard and boring. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
And then they started doing tests on me. They put needles through my head. Well, not through my head, but through the skin of my scalp.
Uh-huh.
With wires to test. They didn't find anything. They kept on trying to find stuff, but they never could find anything. And then after that, at the age of 16, they thought I was in a depression. They tried that, and that didn't work out. Then they tried, and anyways, I don't want to talk. They tried many things to find out many things that maybe I could be. But at the end, they finally said, well, she just has a personality, not a personality problem, but a comportement. How do I say that? An acting out problem.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So they finished it like that, but there was still something. But they just didn't want. They gave me so many medications that they I think what they wanted to do was to stop that because it wasn't doing me any good. It was just like making you very tired, and it wasn't good.
Yeah, they had started me on Ritalin, I think, and I didn't stay on it very long because it should have been sort of a clue. I don't know what they knew then. I know there's 3 different types of AD, attention deficit. There's hyperactive, there's inattentive, and there's impulsive.
Yes.
And I don't know if they knew that then, but they had tried me on Ritalin, and I don't remember how long I was on, but I can remember just that surge of, I guess, adrenaline or whatever hit you from that. And so I was like literally bouncing around while I was going to school in the bus, and I'd get there and the first class I'd kind of settle down, and then I kind of remember it kind of going normal after that, but apparently it wasn't. And the big thing that I wish professionals and parents would talk with their children more about what's going on, because you might not, there's exceptions to that. I know that my parents were told after my diagnosis came back that I'd never graduate from high school. And which I was sort of shocked at, because I'm glad I know that now, because I would have said, no, I wasn't that bad. Well, that's pretty bad if they're telling you, your parents, you're not going to graduate from high school. But there was...
That's very encouraging.
It's what?
That's not encouraging to help you want to try.
Well, I know. Well, I'm kind of glad they didn't tell me that I didn't know that specifically. But I wish it wasn't dropped like it was. I don't feel like there was any services that maybe as I got older that they should follow up and say, okay, well, you've done pretty good compensating, but just to let you know that when it comes to employment, when it comes to relationships, just to give you some sort of something to help you understand yourself better, because that was something for me. Now that I look back, I think my life would be very different if I had known. I would probably be in a relationship, if not married. I may have a family. These are things that I feel didn't happen because I always felt like there's something influencing this. Something's not right. Something, and it was the autism.
Yeah.
Wow, it's pretty amazing. I enjoy talking with you and I enjoy talking with others that I can relate to, because it's I still have that feeling like you're. I really do. I think of you as a sister, as a autistic sister, somebody who really does relate and really can understand, and that's very few people. I think still I could probably, well, I guess if I count everybody I've met since in the last 8 months, it'd be more than I could count on my hands. But I told you about the people that helped start up the ASD Village. Those are the people that I feel a bond with, that are family practically. And you join in. It's like, okay, you are an exception to this model of what society and what socializing is. And you are now a person that really understands. So I'm changing my whole concept of socializing and what society can be. I'm so excited. I still am. How do you feel?
I don't know what to say, but I can say one thing.
Uh-huh.
I wish people would understand that when we say that we are doing our best, and when we describe how difficult the situation is, to not take it lightly or think that we feel our pain the same level as them or in the same situation. I find that I can tell my mom I have difficulty with pressure, and at the beginning, and she said, well, all jobs have pressure, but I don't believe she understood the intensity of what I was going through. Now she understands better.
Uh-huh.
But at the beginning, it was like, it's like as if some people don't understand how hard it can be, how your world can be turned upside down in situations that for other people, it's yes, it's hard, but not that hard, you know?
Right. Well, it goes back down to and when I don't think that, okay, I'm trying to think how to word this. I think that being autistic and trying to have lived in a world as not being autistic, we learned a lot about that world, or at least we learned in a sort of a strange way what we're not by trying to live in that world. We didn't know what we were, but we kind of knew what we were not, and that's sort of a weird way to go about life. But and I think when people that are neurotypical try to think of autism, it is naturally it's from their neurotypical perspective. They think, well, how could a sound, how could a touch, how could a temperature, how could changing routines, how could that really disrupt you? And I give an example at work. I know when I sit down, I work in maintenance in an apartment, so sometimes stuff gets thrown at me that something broke that night, or somebody has something they want fixed that morning, and my mind is already set on doing a totally half a day or a full day of a different task. And they say, okay, well, you need to do this now. And it's like, I need to go back to the office. I need to sit there for a while and kind of go, okay. And sometimes I need to detach completely. I'll literally play a video game on my iPod, and it's just sort of like, okay. And it just sort of neutralizes everything, and I can come back to the situation and I can think, okay, now what is it I have to do? I have to do this. So I'll think it through, which I think is a common trait. It's like you kind of do it first in your head before you go to do it. And they don't understand. It's like, well, why do you need to do that? You're just being lazy. You just want to play video games. It's like, no, I'm trying to detach. I'm trying to change gears. Is that kind of, does that sound right to you? Is that sort of what you kind of go through too, in a sense?
Well, I can explain you like the times when it was difficult.
Okay.
Once. There was this man. He needed this machine, and for me to get his machine ready, I just had to put water in it and take the little cover off, put water in it, and put the little cover back on.
Uh-huh.
But I turn on the water, and it's on too high. But I couldn't. I knew I had to put it down, but I couldn't. I was like frozen, and I couldn't. So I said, okay, next step. I can't do that, so I'll have to go to the next step. So I put the water in, and it's splashing all over the place. And then it's time to put the cover on. But I totally forgot where the cover was, and I was looking for it, and I was in like a total panic, and I was looking all over, and I couldn't get out of the panic. I just, my mind couldn't think, couldn't process anymore.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Even another person, I had to explain a machine, and I knew how to do it. I just had to take the time, but she was like moving fast around me, and it was making me. I was kind of dizzy, and I was like thinking in my head. I was imagining myself explaining him how to do it, but then everything was going like too fast, and I was just frozen. I couldn't talk. I couldn't speak. I just gave him his paper, and he left, and that was it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I just couldn't handle it. It was too much, you know.
Yeah. You know, as you talk about these things, I'm noticing something, and I think it's related to being older. I think that the tremendous amount of energy it takes to do all these processes, I think as we are getting older, is becoming harder, because I don't think my mind is as sharp. I don't think my stamina is as strong, as enduring, and things like that are changing for me. And I'm almost, gosh, this is almost embarrassing for me to talk about, but I will, like when I'm trying to get stuff ready here to do this interview, I will put some part or some piece of something that I need on the desk, and I'll forget where I put it, and I'll think, okay, well, where is it? And I'll start getting very upset. I mean, it's like, oh, come on, where is it? And it can literally, sometimes it's literally sitting in front of me and I can't see it because I'm focusing on something else, or I'm thinking of a different color, or I'm thinking, and so and of course, this goes back to, I'm still in that, and partially in that frame of mind where I'm trying to compare myself with a neurotypical person. So I'm saying, okay, well, there's something wrong with you. Instead of me saying, when you have a certain amount of stress, your brain cannot process things like it was without the stress. And so that you need to, instead of getting more upset, you need to maybe walk away, or you need to sort of say, okay, and just drop it for a few seconds. Trying to find different ways of coping with it instead of trying to cope with it the way you think you're supposed to. Does that make sense? You can say no. Or you can say, I don't know what you just said. Seriously, sometimes I just go off on tangents.
The loose stress of what the person saying sometimes. So I don't know. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. This is actually a probably what a person that's neurotypical, even neurodiverse, would probably see watching our interview, is to see, they go, I do that. I've had a person just this morning comment on YouTube something about seeing something about the interaction. It surprises me. They're like, oh, they'll pick out one thing and go, oh, I do that too. And it's like, I didn't even realize I was doing that. And they'll say, yeah, I do that, So this is that opportunity to learn. And I think that when we go off on tangents, or we completely go blank on a subject, or that it shows people how our minds either work or don't work sometimes.
That's true.
Yeah.
It gives them a visual.
Yes. Yeah.
Or an auditive.
Let me think. There were questions that were coming to. I've got a pencil and I've got paper in front of me, and I should write these things down instead of trying to remember them, because they won't stay up here in my head. But there's.
I do the same.
It's what?
I do the same. I got to write things down, or else I forget. And sometimes when I write it down, I forget where I put what I wrote down.
Me too. I have to be very specific. Oh, there's so many. And this is a good example of when people that might be neurotypical wonder, when we talk about how much effort it is to process things, the fact that because I think it changes. It's not like we can say. And I think this is also why we like our routines, because if we can get in a groove, if we can do things the same way, then there's less chance that we're going to forget things that that we'll remember.
Yeah, it's easier to process.
Exactly. And that's why changes in routines are so difficult, because it's like, what? It's like starting over.
Uh-huh.
Wow. It's isn't it in a strange way comforting to know that's our normal, that we can be at peace with saying, okay, that's me, I do that, yep, and you do that too, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I would say that it's a very healthy thing for us to do, because look at babies, right? Babies, they have their time schedule. It's time to eat. It's